I still keep her mug in the same spot. It's a cheap ceramic thing with a thin crack down the side. The kind of mug you buy because it was on sale and you like the color. She used it every morning anyway. Said it made the coffee taste better. When I rinse it out, the crack turns dark and stays dark longer than the rest of the mug, like it's holding on to something. The first time I heard her voice after the accident, it came from that mug. I was standing at the sink, not really awake, letting the water run because my hands wouldn't do what I told them to. The kitchen was gray with early light. The house was too quiet. I'd been sleeping in the living room because I couldn't handle the bed. The bed still smelled like her shampoo, even after I stripped it and washed everything twice. I was staring at the crack in the mug, thinking about nothing. And then I heard it. Soft, annoyed, like she was right behind my shoulder. "Don't waste the water." I froze with my hands under the stream. I turned around so fast my shoulder popped. There was nobody there. Just the empty kitchen. The chair she liked pushed in like she'd never sat in it. The little magnet on the fridge shaped like a cat. The clock ticking like it had a job. I laughed. It came out wrong. I told myself it was my head doing what heads do when they're broken. But the water kept running, and the mug in my hand felt heavier than it should. I shut the tap and stood there until my fingers went numb. That was 6 weeks after she died. 6 weeks since the call. 6 weeks since the plant manager's voice went flat and careful and said there'd been an incident. 6 weeks since I drove out there with my hazards on, thinking I was going to see her sitting on the curb with a bandage on her arm, rolling her eyes because everybody was making a big deal. 6 weeks since I saw the metal door to the press bay open and the paramedics coming out fast and pale. 6 weeks since I saw what was left of my wife. I loved her so much it made me stupid. It still does. When people say that kind of thing, it usually sounds like a line, like something they say at a funeral because it's what you're supposed to say. But I mean it in the ugliest way. I mean it like a sickness. If I'm being honest, it didn't start as some big movie love. It started the way most things do. Boredom, routine, and somebody laughing at the same dumb joke you thought was only funny in your head. We met at a friend's apartment. I was there because I didn't want to be alone after a breakup. She was there because her cousin dragged her out. She had dark hair pulled up in a messy knot and a smear of grease on her cheek because she'd come straight from work. She worked at Gearhart Manufacturing. Everybody in town either worked there or knew somebody who did. The plant sat on the edge of town like a big concrete block with its own weather. The air around it always tasted like metal. Lena. She hated when people called her Elena. Hated when they tried to make her name sound like something from a poem. "Lena is fine," she'd say. "Don't dress it up." That was her too. Straightforward. Honest in a way that made you feel a little exposed. When she laughed at my joke, she didn't do that polite little thing people do. She laughed like it surprised her, like she couldn't stop it. Her eyes watered. She wiped at them with the back of her hand and left another smear of grease. I stared at that smear like it mattered. 2 years later, we were married in her mom's backyard with folding chairs and a playlist my friend made because we couldn't afford a DJ. She wore a simple dress, no veil. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize my face. "You're real," she whispered when I lifted her hand to put the ring on. "What?" I said. I keep expecting this to be a joke, she said. Like I'll blink and it'll be over. It's not a joke, I told her. She smiled like she didn't believe me. Sometimes I think about that now, and I want to grab her by the shoulders and shake her and tell her she was right. I want to tell her she should have run. The day she died started like any other day, which is the cruelest part. We woke up late because the power had flickered in the night and the alarm didn't go off. I remember that because she sat up fast, hair all over her face, and said, "Oh, damn it," like it was personal. I rolled over and grabbed my phone. The screen was dead. "Power did that thing again," I said. She swung her legs out of bed and stood there for a second, steadying herself. She'd been complaining about headaches all week. She said it was the fluorescent lights at the plant. "You should call in," I said, already knowing she wouldn't. She made a face. "I already swapped shifts. If I call in, they'll make it a whole thing." "They can deal with it," I said. "I can deal with it," she said. "I don't want to give them a reason." That was another thing about her. She didn't like owing anyone. She didn't like people thinking she was weak. It wasn't pride exactly. It was more like, if she didn't hold herself up, nobody would. I followed her into the kitchen, still half asleep, and watched her pull her hair into a ponytail. "You're going to be late," I said. She glanced at the clock and swore again. I should have offered to drive her. My truck had been making a weird noise and she didn't trust it, but it ran. Instead, I said, "Just be careful." It was something I said all the time. It meant nothing. She poured coffee into her cracked mug, took a sip, and winced. "Too hot," she said. I watched her blow on it like she was trying to cool her whole life down. "Text me when you get there," I said. She nodded and leaned in for a kiss. Her lips were warm and tasted like burnt coffee. "I love you," she said. "I love you," I said. She grabbed her lunch bag and her keys and headed for the door. "Lena," I called. She stopped in the doorway and looked back. I don't remember why I called her. Maybe I just wanted one more second. "What?" she said, impatient but not angry. I stared at her like an idiot. "Nothing," I said. "Just be careful." She rolled her eyes the way she always did when she thought I was being dramatic. "I'm always careful," she said. Then she was gone. I went back to bed. That part is hard to admit. Not because it's a crime to go back to bed, but because when I think about it now, it feels like I made a choice. Like I chose sleep over her. I work nights as a maintenance contractor. Not at Gearhart, but at a smaller place across town. That week I'd been pulling extra hours. I'd come home at 3 a.m, eaten cereal standing up, and collapsed. I fell asleep with my phone on my chest. When I woke up, it was midday, and the light in the room was too bright. My phone had a missed call from an unknown number. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for my brain to catch up. Then it rang again. I answered without thinking. "Is this Ethan Wallace?" A man's voice said. "Yes," I said. "This is Gearhart Manufacturing," he said. "We need you to come down here right away." "What happened?" I said. There was a pause, and then the man said, "There's been an accident. Your wife. I don't remember the rest. I remember my hand shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I remember standing up too fast and getting dizzy. I remember pulling on yesterday's jeans and stepping into my boots without socks. I remember the drive, how my vision kept narrowing, like I was looking through a tunnel, and the world outside it didn't matter. At the plant, there were police cars, an ambulance, a crowd of workers standing by the fence. Some of them were smoking, even though there were signs everywhere that said not to. I parked crooked and ran. Somebody grabbed my arm at the gate. It was a security guy I recognized from a time I'd picked Lena up when her car wouldn't start. "Sir, you can't," he started. "My wife," I said. "My wife is in there." His face changed. Not pity exactly. Something worse. Like he wanted to look away. "Let him through," someone said. A man in a hard hat approached. Plant manager. I'd met him once at a safety picnic they did to pretend they cared. "Mr. Wallace," he said. "Where is she?" I said. He glanced behind him toward the building, and for half a second I thought he was going to point to a door and say she was inside, waiting. Instead he said, "There was an incident with Press 6. I knew Press 6. Lena had told me about it. Old machine, temperamental. They used it for stamping heavy parts. Big hydraulic press with a metal mouth that came down fast. She was in the bay when it..." He started. "Where is she?" I said again, louder. He held up his hands like he was calming a dog. She's with medical," he said. "We have paramedics. We're doing everything." I shoved past him. Someone called my name, but it sounded far away. The inside of the plant was loud even with half the machines shut down. The air was thick, oily. My stomach turned. I followed the crowd of people moving toward the press bay. Nobody stopped me. They just watched. In the bay, Press 6 sat silent. The big metal plate was down. There was blood on the floor. Not a small amount. Not a smear. A wide, dark stain that had soaked into the concrete and spread like somebody dumped paint. There were scraps of fabric stuck to the edge of the press, caught in grease. Somebody was crying. I realized it was me. The paramedics were already packing up. One of them had his gloves off and was rubbing his hands like he couldn't get clean. I saw the stretcher. It was covered. A white sheet, lumpy, wrong. The sheet was stained in places, dark, almost black. I walked toward it. A paramedic stepped in front of me. "You can't," he said. "She's my wife," I said. His jaw worked like he was chewing something. "Please," I said. He hesitated, then stepped aside. I grabbed the edge of the sheet. Under it was not my wife, not the Lena I knew. It was a shape. Flesh flattened and torn, hair matted with grease. Her face was there, sort of, but it was wrong, like a mask pressed into mud. Her eyes were open. One of them had shifted out of place. I could see too much white. Her mouth was open like she was still trying to talk. I made a sound I didn't recognize. Someone pulled me back. I fought them. Not because I wanted to see more, but because my body didn't accept what my eyes were telling it. She was alive when we got to her, someone said behind me, quiet. That sentence followed me for days. It still does. Alive. When the press came down, it didn't kill her instantly. She was alive under it. I don't know how long. I never asked. The funeral was closed casket. They did their best. Makeup, padding, prayer. I didn't open it. Her mother begged me not to. I think she thought it would break whatever was left of me. What broke me was not seeing her. What broke me was the idea of her alone in there, crushed and still breathing. In the weeks after, people brought casseroles and awkward hugs and sentences that ended with, "If you need anything." I didn't need anything they could give. I stopped going to work. I stopped returning calls. I sat in the living room with the curtains drawn and watched dust float through the air. At night I dreamed of metal, not the machine itself, but the sound it made. The deep, dull slam, the hiss, the soft click when the safety interlock engaged. In my dreams, the click didn't happen. The press came down anyway. I'd wake up with my jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. I started leaving the bathroom light on because the dark felt crowded. Then the voice in the kitchen happened. After that, I couldn't pretend I was just sad. It wasn't like the movies. No cold wind, no lights flickering, no dramatic banging. It was worse because it was normal. It was her tone. It was her little irritation about wasting water. I stood there in the kitchen with the mug in my hand, and I whispered, "Lena?" Nothing. My throat tightened. "Lena," I said again. I waited. Nothing. My heart raced like it wanted to leave. I put the mug down and backed out of the kitchen like I was leaving a wild animal alone. I went to the living room and sat on the couch. I stayed there for hours, staring at the doorway. Eventually, I told myself it was grief. That's what everyone tells you grief does. It makes you see things, hear things. It makes you crazy. So when it happened again 2 days later, I tried to handle it like grief. I was in the hallway, carrying a load of laundry I didn't care about, when I heard her whisper from behind the bathroom door. "Ethan," she said. Soft, close. My hands went weak and the laundry dropped. I stared at the door. The bathroom light was on. The door was cracked. I hadn't left it cracked. I stepped closer. The smell hit me first. Not rot exactly. Not like a dead animal. Something metallic and sour, like old pennies and damp cloth. I pushed the door open. She was standing in front of the mirror. At first, my brain did this stupid thing where it tried to fix her. It tried to make her normal. It tried to fill in missing parts. But she wasn't missing parts. She was wrong in a way that didn't make sense. Her body was there, but it looked like it had been pressed too thin. Like someone took her and flattened her a little, then tried to build her back up. Her work shirt hung off one shoulder. The fabric was stiff with dried grease. Her hair was still in a ponytail, but it was messy. Strands stuck to her neck. Her skin had bruises that weren't bruises, gray patches, shiny spots, and her eyes, they were open too wide. She looked at me in the mirror and then turned her head slowly. She smiled. It was her smile, the one that used to make me feel like I was safe. "Hi," she said. I couldn't move. My throat made a choking sound. She took a step toward me. I saw the way her body moved, like joints didn't line up right, like her hips had been shifted. The smell got stronger. I stepped back and hit the hallway wall. "Lena," I said, and my voice cracked like a teenager. She lifted her hand. Her fingers were stained dark, like she'd been handling oil. "Don't," she said. "Don't what?" I whispered. "Don't look at me like that," she said. My stomach turned. "I'm not," I started. She moved closer again. Not fast, not threatening, like she belonged here. "I missed you," she said. The word missed made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. You're dead," I said. She blinked slowly. "I know," she said. She said it like she was talking about the weather. "I watched them put you in the ground," I said. Her smile didn't change. "They didn't put all of me in," she said. I stared. "What?" I said. She looked past me toward the hallway. "Your laundry," she said. "You dropped it." I looked down. The laundry was on the floor, socks spilling out. When I looked back up, she was gone. The bathroom was empty. The mirror showed my own face, pale, eyes wide, mouth hanging open. I ran outside. I didn't even put on shoes. I just ran out into the yard like the house was on fire. I stood on the grass, breathing hard, staring at my front door. The neighborhood was quiet. A dog barked somewhere. A car went by slowly. No one noticed. No one came out to ask why I was barefoot in the yard shaking. I stayed out there until my feet were numb from the cold. Then I went back in. The bathroom light was still on. The door was shut. I checked every room. Empty. I told myself it was a hallucination. I told myself I'd finally snapped. But the smell lingered. That metallic sour smell stayed in the bathroom for hours. I scrubbed the sink and the mirror and the tiles until my hands were raw. It didn't help. That night I sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in my lap. Not because I thought she would attack me, but because I didn't know what else to do. I kept looking at the hallway. At some point I fell asleep. I dreamed of her voice coming from inside the walls. When I woke up, the knife was on the floor, and my bedroom door was open. I hadn't opened it. I stayed awake for 3 days after that. Not because I wanted to, because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her under the press. I saw her mouth open. I heard a sound I couldn't place, and then I realized it was the hiss of hydraulic fluid. On the 4th day, I finally broke and called my friend Mark. Mark and I have known each other since high school. He's the kind of guy who tries to fix things with jokes, and when that doesn't work, he gets quiet. He came over with 2 coffees and a bag of breakfast sandwiches like I was just hungover. He walked into my living room, looked at me and stopped. Jesus, he said. I'm fine, I lied. He sat down and set the food on the coffee table. You look like you've been living in a cave, he said. Pretty much, I said. He glanced around like he expected to see Lena sitting somewhere. Any updates? He asked, meaning the investigation. The plant had been doing their internal review. OSHA had been sniffing around. People called me with questions I couldn't answer. I shrugged. They said it was a malfunction, I said. Mark frowned. They always say that. I don't care what they say, I said. He leaned forward. You should care. If they... Why? I snapped. So I can sue them? So I can get money? I don't want money. He held up his hands. I know. I'm just saying. Someone should be held responsible. Responsible. The word hit me like a slap. I swallowed. Mark watched me. You okay? He asked. I opened my mouth. I almost told him. Almost told him about the voice, the bathroom, the smell. But if I said it out loud, it would become real in a way I couldn't handle. So I said, I'm just tired. Mark nodded slowly, not convinced. We sat in silence for a moment. Then, from the hallway, I heard it. A soft scrape, like a shoe on tile. Mark didn't react. Maybe he didn't hear it. Maybe it wasn't there. My eyes locked on the hallway opening. Mark followed my gaze. What? He asked. Nothing, I said too fast. I listened. Silence. Mark started talking again about the investigation, about lawyers, about how his cousin knew someone. I barely heard him. I kept staring at the hallway. Then, slow as a sunrise, something moved. A face. Lena's face. Just the top half, peeking around the corner like she was playing a game. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were wide. Her skin was gray in spots. She smiled at me. Mark kept talking. I stared. Her mouth moved. No sound came out. She lifted a finger and pressed it to her lips. Then she withdrew, slipping back behind the wall. My whole body went cold. Mark was still talking. I realized he hadn't seen her. I forced myself to look at Mark. He was looking at me now. Ethan, he said, you're scaring me. I'm fine, I said. My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else. Mark leaned forward, lowered his voice. Look, I know you don't want to hear this, he said, but maybe you should talk to someone. Like, professionally. I'm not crazy, I said. He hesitated. I didn't say you were, he said. I'm just... In the hallway, I heard Lena's voice again. Not soft this time. Sharp. Don't let him. I jerked. Mark flinched. What? I stared at the hallway. Nothing. My heart pounded. Mark stood up slowly. Ethan, he said, do you want me to stay tonight? I opened my mouth. Before I could answer, the bathroom light clicked off. Mark looked toward the hallway. Did you do that? He asked. No, I said. We both stared. The bathroom light clicked on again, then off. then on. Mark's face changed. He tried to laugh. It came out thin. "Okay," he said. "Maybe you've got wiring issues." I didn't answer. The light went off again. This time it stayed off. Mark swallowed. He looked at me. "Ethan," he said, voice low. "Is someone else here?" "No," I said. From somewhere deeper in the house I heard a sound, a heavy, dull slam. It wasn't the bathroom door. It wasn't a cabinet. It sounded like metal meeting metal. Mark heard it too. He turned toward the hallway. "What the hell was that?" he whispered. I stood up. My legs felt like they didn't belong to me. I walked toward the hallway. Mark grabbed my arm. "Don't," he hissed. I shook him off. The hallway was dark now because the bathroom light was off. I could still see the outline of the bathroom door. I could still see the crack of the bedroom door open. I could smell that metallic sour smell again. It was stronger. I stepped forward. Another slam, deeper inside the house. Mark was behind me now, close. "Ethan," he said, "we should leave." I took another step. Something shifted at the end of the hallway. A shape, low to the ground. My eyes adjusted. It was Lena, or part of her. She was crouched in the doorway to our bedroom. Her head was tilted. Her mouth was open. Her voice came out like it was scraping through something. "Tell him to go," she said. Mark gasped. He saw her. His hand tightened on my arm hard enough to hurt. What is that?" he whispered. Lena's eyes flicked to him. Her smile widened. She stood up slowly. When she moved into the hallway light, I saw more. Her torso was misshapen. One shoulder sat higher than the other. Her chest looked like it had been caved in and then pushed out again. There were dark stains on her work shirt. Grease. Blood. Something else. Mark made a choking sound. "Lena?" he said, like he was trying to be polite. She turned her head toward him. Her eyes held his. "You don't get to say my name," she said. Mark stumbled back, dragging me with him. "Ethan," he said, voice rising. "What the fuck is happening?" I couldn't answer. Lena took a step forward. The hallway seemed to narrow around her. The air felt thick. The smell hit hard. Mark gagged. "Ethan," he said, "I'm leaving. Come with me." Lena's smile disappeared. "No," she said. Mark grabbed my wrist and yanked. I stumbled. Lena moved fast, not like a person running, like something sliding. 1 second she was in the hallway. The next she was right in front of Mark. Her hand shot out and grabbed his face. Her fingers sank into his cheeks like dough. Mark screamed. It wasn't a long scream. It cut off fast. Lena squeezed. There was a wet crunch. Mark's body jerked. His hands flailed, hitting her arm, hitting the wall. His eyes rolled. His mouth worked like he was trying to speak. Blood ran from his nose. Lena held him like she was holding a child still. I stood there frozen. My mind screamed at me to move. My body didn't. Lena leaned in close to Mark. She spoke softly like she was telling him a secret. "You don't take him away," she said. Then she slammed his head against the wall. Once, twice. The third time his skull made a sound like a dropped melon. His body went limp. Lena let go. Mark slid down the wall and collapsed on the floor. Blood spread under him. I stared. My ears rang. The hallway smelled like pennies and warm meat. Lena turned toward me. Her face was calm, almost gentle. "See?" she said. "It's just us." I couldn't breathe. My mouth opened. A sound came out, broken. "Why?" I rasped. She looked at Mark's body, then back at me. "He was going to make you forget," she said. "I would never forget you," I said. She took a step closer. Her feet made no sound. She reached out and touched my cheek. Her hand was cold and greasy. I flinched. Her eyes narrowed. "You don't get to flinch," she said. Tears spilled down my face. I didn't wipe them. "I miss you," I said. "I miss you so much." Her expression softened. "I know," she said. She leaned in, and for a moment I thought she was going to kiss me. Instead, she pressed her forehead to mine. The skin of her forehead felt too smooth in some places and too rough in others. She smelled like the press bay. "I'm stuck," she whispered. "Do you know what it's like?" I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "I'm in the dark," she said. "And then I'm here. And then I'm in the dark again. And it hurts every time I remember what happened." My stomach twisted. "I'm sorry," I said. Her fingers dug into my cheek. "Are you?" she said. "Yes," I said. "Yes. God, yes." She pulled back and looked at me. "Then show me," she said. She glanced down at Mark. "Clean it up," she said. I stared at her. "What?" I said. "Clean it up," she repeated. "He's going to start smelling soon." I shook my head. "No." Her eyes hardened. "You don't say no to me anymore," she said. Fear crawled up my throat. "She's not real," part of my brain tried to say. But Mark's body on the floor was real. The blood was real. The smear of bone on the wall was real. Lena tilted her head. "Do you want me to do it?" she asked. I swallowed. My hands shook. "I'll do it," I whispered. She smiled again. "That's my husband," she said. Then she stepped back. As she moved toward the bedroom doorway, her body flickered. For a second, she looked like she used to. Whole, warm, alive. Then the flicker passed, and she was flat and bruised and wrong again. She disappeared into the bedroom. The hallway felt empty without her, but not safe. I stood there staring at Mark for a long time. My friend. His eyes were half open, unfocused. His mouth was twisted. I knelt beside him. His skin was already cooling. I touched his shoulder. Nothing. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood up and walked to the kitchen like I was on autopilot. I got a roll of trash bags from under the sink. I got a mop. I got bleach. My hands moved like they belonged to someone who knew what they were doing. I came back to the hallway. I stared at Mark again. I tried to lift him. His body was heavier than it should have been. Dead weight. I dragged him inch by inch into the spare room. The spare room was where we'd planned to put a crib someday. We never did. It was full of boxes now. I shoved the boxes aside and laid Mark down on the floor. His head lolled. Blood smeared on the carpet. I gagged. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until my throat burned. When I looked up, the mirror was fogged. In the fog, someone had drawn a smiley face. Not a cute one. A wide grin with too many teeth. My stomach dropped. I wiped the mirror with my sleeve. The smiley face smeared and disappeared, but the smell stayed. I went back to the spare room. I wrapped Mark in trash bags like I was wrapping garbage. My hands shook so hard I could barely tie the knots. I kept expecting him to wake up. I kept expecting Lena to appear and laugh and say it was a joke. Neither happened. I sat on the floor next to the black plastic bundle that used to be my friend and put my head in my hands. I don't know how long I stayed like that. At some point I heard Lena's voice from the bedroom. "Ethan," she called. The way she said it made my skin crawl, like she was calling a dog. I forced myself to stand. I walked down the hallway. The bedroom door was open. The room was dark. I stepped inside. The air was colder. The smell was stronger. I heard something soft, rhythmic. A faint hiss, like hydraulic fluid under pressure. "Lena?" I whispered. A shape moved in the dark. She stepped into the faint light from the hallway. She looked better. Not alive. Not normal. But less crushed. Her shoulders sat more evenly. Her face looked less like a pressed mask. Her eyes were still wrong. She smiled. "You did good," she said. I stared at her. "You killed him," I said. She shrugged, a gesture I recognized. "He got in the way," she said. "He was my friend," I said. She looked at me with something like boredom. "Was he?" she asked. I opened my mouth. No words came. She stepped closer. Her hand moved to my chest. She pressed her palm against my heart. I felt nothing from her hand except cold, but my heart pounded under it. "You still love me?" she said. "Yes," I whispered. "Say it," she said. "I love you," I said. Her smile widened. "Good," she said, "because I don't have anyone else." My throat tightened. "What do you want?" I asked. Her eyes focused on something behind me, like she was looking through my skull. "I want you to remember," she said. "I remember," I said. "No," she snapped. "Not the parts you like. Not the parts where you're the sad husband and everyone pats your hand. I want you to remember what you did." My blood ran cold. "I didn't," I started. She slapped me. Not hard enough to knock me down. Hard enough to make my cheeks sting. Her hand left a smear on my skin, dark like grease. "Don't," she said. My eyes burned. "I didn't do anything," I whispered. Her face twisted. In a blink, she looked more crushed again, like rage pulled her back into that shape. "You're lying," she said. "I'm not," I said, and my voice broke. She leaned close. Her breath was cold against my lips. "Then why did the safety lights stay off?" she whispered. My stomach dropped. I stared at her. "I don't know," I said. She laughed. It wasn't her laugh. It was a wet, broken sound. "You do," she said. "You do. You just don't want to." I shook my head. "Stop," I whispered. She stepped back. Her expression shifted, almost tender again. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said. My cheek still stung. Mark was dead in the other room. "Okay," I said, my voice hollow. "Okay." She nodded like she'd won. "Go to the plant," she said. I stared. "What?" "Go," she repeated. "I can't go there alone. Not all the way. It's loud. It pulls me. But you can open it." "Open what?" I asked. She smiled. "You know," she said, "I didn't. Or I didn't want to." She moved closer again. Her fingers traced the grease smear on my cheek like she was marking me. "Bring me something," she whispered. "What?" "A piece," she said. "A piece of what took me." I swallowed. "No," I said, weak. Her eyes hardened again. "Or I'll bring you pieces," she said. I felt something inside me snap. I flinched, not from her hand this time, but from the image that flashed in my mind. Mark's skull against the wall. The wet crunch. I nodded. "Okay," I said. Her smile returned. "That's my husband," she said again. She reached up and brushed my hair back from my forehead. The gesture was so normal it almost made me sob. "I'm tired," I whispered. She looked at me, and for a second her eyes softened. "I was tired too," she said. Then she stepped away into the darkness of the bedroom. The room felt like it swallowed her. Her voice came from the dark, quieter now. "Don't take too long," she said. "It's hard to stay." I stood there for a long time. Then I went to the bathroom and washed my face. The water ran brown for a second before it cleared. I stared at my reflection. There was a faint dark smear on my cheek where her hand had been. No matter how hard I scrubbed, it didn't go away. In the mirror behind my shoulder, I thought I saw her, just for a second, peeking around the bathroom door, smiling. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. That night, I dragged Mark's body to the garage. I won't pretend I did it cleanly. I won't pretend I had a plan. I just did what she told me because the alternative felt worse. I put him in the trunk of my car. I kept expecting the neighbors to see. Nobody did. Maybe they weren't looking. Maybe they didn't want to. I drove out past town to the old quarry road. It was dark, and the trees on both sides looked like tall black walls. I stopped where the road dipped, and there was a steep drop-off into a pit full of old water. The quarry had been fenced off years ago, but people still went there to drink and throw things. I opened the trunk. The trash bags were slick with blood. I stood there breathing hard. My hands trembled. I grabbed the bundle and dragged it to the edge. It snagged on rocks. I pulled harder. The bundle slid over the edge and disappeared with a soft splash. The sound was small. Too small for what I'd done. I stood there staring into the dark. In the reflection of the water, I thought I saw Lena's face. Not floating, not rising, just watching from the surface like the water was a mirror. She smiled. I slammed the trunk shut and drove home. When I walked into the house, the lights were off. The living room was dark. The hallway was darker. I stood in the doorway and listened. For the first time since the accident, the house was completely silent. No ticking clock, no hum of the fridge, no distant traffic. Like everything had paused to listen to. Then Lena's voice came from the hallway. Soft, close. "Good," she said. I swallowed. "I did it," I whispered. A figure moved in the darkness at the end of the hall. She stepped forward just enough for me to see the outline of her. "I know," she said. I took a step toward her. "I'll go to the plant," I said. "Tomorrow." Her head tilted. "Not tomorrow," she said. "I can't," I said. Her voice cut through mine. "Now," she said. My stomach sank. "It's closed," I said. She laughed softly. "It's never closed," she said. I stood there shaking. My mind searched for excuses. My body remembered press 6, the blood on the floor, the sheet, her eyes open. "Why?" I whispered. She stepped a little closer. The faint light from the street through the window caught her face. She looked more crushed again. The dark patches on her skin glistened. "Because I can't keep holding the shape," she said. "Because if you don't go, I have to stay in the dark longer. And in the dark, I remember." I swallowed. "What do you remember?" I asked. Her smile faded. She looked past me toward the front door. "The click," she said. My chest tightened. "The click." She turned her eyes back to mine. "The safety," she whispered. "The sound it didn't make." I felt dizzy. My mouth went dry. "I don't know," I said again, but it sounded weaker. She stepped close enough that I could smell her. Metal, oil, damp cloth. Something sweet underneath that made me think of her shampoo, like a memory rot. "You do," she said. "You were there." My heart lurched. "I wasn't," I said. "I wasn't at the plant." She stared at me. Her expression was blank. Then she smiled slowly. "Maybe not with your body," she said, "but you were there." A sound came from somewhere deep inside the house, a dull slam. The same sound as before. The press. Impossible. I flinched. Lena watched me flinch. Her smile widened. "See?" she whispered. "You remember." I stood in the doorway with my keys in my hand, not remembering getting them. The night air outside felt sharp. My car sat in the driveway. The street was empty. Lena stood at the end of the hallway, watching. I couldn't tell if she was pleased or hungry. I walked out. I got in the car. I started the engine. As I backed out, I glanced at the house. In the front window, I saw her face, peeking from behind the curtain, smiling. I drove toward Gearhart Manufacturing with my hands locked on the wheel. The plant was a dark block against the night sky. Security lights washed the parking lot in hard white. The fence line gleamed. I parked near the side where employees came in. My badge still worked. I'd been in there before to fix a coolant line on a contract job. I'd kept the badge because nobody asked for it back. I swiped it at the door. The lock clicked. The sound made my stomach twist. Inside, the air was colder than outside. The hum of the building filled my ears. The smell hit me immediately. Oil, metal, that sour penny smell. I walked down the main corridor with my footsteps too loud. Every shadow looked like it had a face. I kept expecting to see her. I didn't. That was worse. The press bay was on the far side of the plant. The lights in that area were dimmed at night, but not off. I reached the door and hesitated. My hand hovered over the handle. My chest felt tight. Behind me in the corridor, I heard the faintest sound, a soft scrape. I turned. Nothing. I faced the press bay door again. I pushed it open. The bay smelled like death, not like rot, like heat and blood and oil. Press 6 sat in its spot, silent. They'd cleaned the floor, but I could still see the darker stain in the concrete, like the blood had soaked in deep and refused to leave. I stepped closer. The machine looked normal. Just metal. Just bolts and hoses and a big plate. And yet my whole body reacted like it was an animal. My hands shook. I reached up and touched the side panel. Cold. I found the safety interlock box. A small metal housing with a light. The light was off. My stomach dropped. It shouldn't be off. I leaned in closer. There was a scratch on the housing. A fresh scratch. Like someone had pried it. I stared at it. My mouth went dry. Then I heard her voice. Not behind me. Not in my head. From inside the machine. "Ethan," she whispered. I jerked back. My heart hammered. I stared at press 6. The machine was still. The bay was empty. But her voice came again. Soft. Close. "Open it," she said. My hands moved without permission. I grabbed the edge of the safety housing. My fingers found the seam. The metal was cold and slightly greasy. I pulled. The housing popped open. Inside was the wiring. Wires bundled and clipped. A small connector. And a thin plastic tie holding something back. My breath caught. I knew that tie. I knew that connector. My stomach twisted as a memory tried to surface. A night shift. Lena complaining about the machine. Me talking to her about the plant cutting corners. Me saying I could fix it. A shortcut. A bypass. My fingers trembled. My mind screamed at me to stop, to close it, to walk away. But Lena's voice slid through the air like cold oil. "You did it," she whispered. My vision narrowed. I stared at the wiring, at the tie, at the connector that looked too familiar. Somewhere deep in the building, I heard a dull slam. Not real, not possible, but my body remembered it. I swallowed and forced myself to breathe. "This isn't," I whispered. "This can't be." Her voice was right next to my ear. "So close," she said. I flinched and spun around. She was there. Not in the hallway, not peeking. Standing right beside the press. Her face was inches from mine. In the harsh overhead light, she looked worse. Flattened, bruised. Her work shirt stuck to her like wet paper. Her eyes were open too wide. She smiled. "Now you remember," she said. My throat tightened. I couldn't speak. She lifted her hand and placed it on the metal of the press. Her palm left a dark smear. "You wanted it quiet," she whispered. "You wanted it easy." I shook my head. "No," I tried to say. She leaned in. Her lips brushed my cheek. Cold, greasy. "You told me you could fix it," she said. "You told me you knew how. You told me it would keep tripping and slowing the line, and they'd blame me. You told me you'd make it stop." The memory hit me like a wave. Not clear, not complete, but a feeling. Me standing in this bay late at night. Me opening the housing. Me laughing softly like it was nothing. Me saying, "See? Easy." Lena watching, half impressed, half worried. Me telling her not to worry. My stomach lurched. "I didn't," I whispered. Lena's fingers tightened on the press. The metal creaked. "You didn't mean to," she said. Her voice softened. "That's the problem," she whispered. "You didn't mean to. And you still did it." I stared at her. Tears burned. "I loved you," I said. She smiled. "I know," she said. "That's why it hurts." She stepped back. Her body flickered. For a second, she looked almost normal. Then the flicker passed and she was crushed again. "Bring me a piece," she said. "And then we can talk." "What piece?" I whispered. She looked at the press. "The part that came down," she said. My stomach turned. "I can't," I said. She looked at me. Her smile disappeared. "Yes," she said. The lights in the bay dimmed. The air grew colder. Somewhere in the machine, something hissed. Press 6 made a sound. A soft click. Then louder, a deeper shift, like it was waking. Lena's eyes widened. She smiled. "I'm tired of waiting," she whispered. I backed away from the press. My hands raised as if that could protect me. The machine shuddered again. The big plate above, silent, heavy, seemed to lean. I felt the weight of it in my bones. Lena's voice came through the hum. "Remember," she said. Then she vanished. The bay light snapped back to normal. Press 6 went still. I stood there shaking, staring at the safety housing in my hand, open like a wound. On the wiring inside, the plastic tie was still there. Tight, clean, like someone had put it there recently. like someone, me, had been in this box. I closed the housing with trembling fingers. The metal clicked shut. The sound echoed. I stumbled out of the bay and down the corridor. My breath came in sharp bursts. The plant felt smaller now, like the walls were leaning in. When I reached the exit door, I fumbled my badge. My hand wouldn't stop shaking. The door finally opened and cold night air hit my face. I leaned against the wall outside and tried not to vomit. In the security light, my hands looked filthy. Dark smears across my palms. I wiped them on my jeans. It didn't help. As I walked to my car, I felt eyes on me. I looked back at the building. In a second-floor window, I saw her. Just her face, peeking between blinds, smiling. I got in the car and drove home. The whole way, the memory kept circling. Me at the press. Me telling her I could fix it. Me taking a shortcut. And Lena's voice in the bay, close to my ear, soft as a promise. You didn't mean to, and you still did it. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked normal. Warm porch light, curtains drawn, quiet. But I knew what was inside. I knew Mark was gone. I knew Lena was waiting. I sat in the car with my hands on the wheel until my knuckles hurt. Then I went inside. The hallway was dark. The smell hit me. Metal, oil, penny sour, and something else now. Something sweet, like the floral shampoo she used, like a memory trying to cover up a stain. From the darkness, her voice came soft. "Did you see it?" she asked. I swallowed. "Yes," I whispered. Her laughter drifted out, low, happy. "Good," she said. "Now we can start." I stood there in the doorway, and the only thing I could think was that I'd been wrong. The day she died hadn't been the end. It had just been the first time the machine came down, and it wasn't finished pressing yet. When she said, "Now we can start," I stood in the hall like the house had grown teeth. The kitchen clock ticked again. The fridge hummed. Normal sounds. Wrong place. "Lena?" From the dark bedroom. "Don't make it about you." I didn't step in. I couldn't. The room smelled like oil and wet pennies, with her shampoo underneath like a memory trying to pass as real. "Tell me what you want," I said. "A piece," she answered. "The one that came down." My stomach turned. "The press plate," I whispered. "You touched it," she said. "Bring it." "I can't just steal part of a machine," I said. "You can," she said, calm. "You already stole something from it." The air felt heavier, like she'd leaned forward without moving. "Tonight," she said. "And Ethan, don't go back to sleep." The hallway light seemed too bright on our wedding photo. Her smile in it looked like someone else's. I went to the garage and packed tools with hands that didn't feel like mine. When I zipped the bag, I heard slow footsteps inside the house. Not rushed, not human hurried. I whispered her name. From the kitchen, soft. "I'm here." She was at the table like it was any other night, her cracked mug in front of her, her posture almost normal, her eyes not. "Don't forget the mug," she said. "What for?" "You'll need something to carry water," she said, and didn't explain. I swallowed. "Are you coming?" She smiled wider. "I'm already there." Then she leaned in, voice low. "Hurry. You're not the only one who remembers where the tie goes." That sentence hit like a door slamming. I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't run either. I walked to the car like my legs belonged to someone calmer. In the driveway, I paused and looked back at the house. The curtain in the living room twitched. I didn't see her face this time, but I felt her attention like a hand between my shoulder blades. I got in, locked the doors, unlocked them again without meaning to, then finally drove. The plant looked flatter at night under security lights, like the world had been pressed thin. My badge still worked. Inside, the air was cold and dry. I moved fast, trying not to look at anything that felt like it belonged to her. A security guard stopped me in the corridor. Same one who tried to keep people back the day she died. "Sir?" he said. "You can't be here." "I left something," I lied. He stepped closer, hand going toward his radio. Behind him, near the press bay door, something shifted. Hair, a face, just a sliver. The guard followed my gaze. "What?" "Nothing," I said too fast. From the bay, Lena's voice, soft as breath on glass. "Press it." My skin went cold. The guard didn't look at me anymore. He stared at the bay door like he heard a sound he didn't have words for. The lights blinked out. In the dark, I heard him whisper, "Please." Then a heavy thud. The lights came back. He was on the floor, twisted wrong, eyes open. There was a deep, dark line at his throat like something had squeezed the life out of him. For a second, my brain tried to make it smaller, tried to tell me he'd just slipped, that he'd get up and swear. I crouched without thinking and reached toward him, then stopped. I didn't want to touch him. I didn't want his warmth to leave and prove what he was. His eyes stared through me. His mouth was slightly open, like he'd been about to say, "Hey." I couldn't move. Lena stepped out of the bay, more solid than she'd been in my house, like the building fed her. "5 minutes," she said. I stepped over the guard. His hand was still warm. Press 6 sat there, silent and clean in the light, with the stain on the concrete beneath it like an old bruise. I opened a side panel with shaking hands and started pulling bolts. The plate wasn't meant to be moved. That was the point. Everything about it said, "Don't touch." Behind me, her voice, "Careful." I snapped, "Don't do that." "You used to tell me," she said, almost curious. I worked faster. When the last bracket gave, the plate sagged and dropped hard onto the floor. The sound went through my teeth. She crouched beside it and stared at a dark smear along one edge like it was a fingerprint. "That's the edge," she whispered. "That's where it caught my shirt." "I'm sorry," I said. "I know," she replied, like it wasn't comfort, like it was inventory. Footsteps approached in the corridor. Another guard turned the corner and froze at the sight of us hauling the plate. "What the hell?" he started. He saw her. His face lost color. The lights went out again. A short, choked sound came from him. Then nothing. When the lights returned, he was on his knees, hands clamped over his eyes, blood seeping between his fingers. He tipped forward and didn't get up. "Carrie," Lena said. We dragged the plate out. She held her end like it weighed nothing. At the side entrance, she stopped. "You should run," she said. "Why?" "Soon," she said. And then she was gone. The plate nearly dropped on my foot when her grip vanished. I wrestled it into my trunk and drove home with the car feeling wrong, like it had swallowed a piece of the plant. Every bump made the metal shift. Not loud, just enough to remind me it was back there, riding with me like a passenger who wouldn't speak. At one intersection, I caught myself stopping at a green light, staring straight ahead, waiting for something bad to happen because it felt like it should. Nothing did. Cars passed. A woman walked her dog. The world kept going like I hadn't just stepped over a warm hand and stolen the weight that killed my wife. In the garage, the plate hit the floor with a dull thud, and the air changed. Oil and metal. Her smell. Lena appeared beside it like she'd been waiting. She held up a small white plastic tie. I stared. My stomach fell out. "I kept it," she said. "It was in me." I gagged. "Now we talk," she said. She pressed the tie into my palm. It bit into my skin like a tiny accusation. Memory rushed in, not as a clean scene but as sensation. Late shift, fluorescent buzz, Lena rubbing her temples. They're blaming me again. Me, tired and sure of myself. The safety housing open. A connector. A sensor. A line that could be fooled. My hands making a loop with a tie. Just for tonight. Tomorrow I'll fix it. Her voice, uneasy. "Ethan." Me, annoyed. "Relax. I know what I'm doing." Then the worst part. The absence. The next day. The tie still there because I didn't go back. Because I forgot. Because forgetting was easy. I opened my eyes in the garage with my breath broken. "I did that," I whispered. "Yes," she said. "I was going to fix it." "You didn't." "I forgot." She slapped the plate. The metal rang through the house. "Don't say it like you forgot your keys," she hissed. Tears came. My voice went thin. "I loved you." "I know," she said, and it sounded like a wound. She made me listen. Not a dramatic scream. Something worse. A trapped, wet struggle. Air being forced through a mouth that couldn't open. My name. Faint. Someone had told me once casually that she'd been alive when they reached her. Alive. And I'd been asleep. I slid down the wall. "I killed you," I whispered. "Yes," she said. She leaned close. "You're going to fix it," she said. "Not by hiding, by being honest, loud, messy." I thought of prison, of headlines, of her mother. Lena's eyes flicked to the wedding photo through the garage window. "My mother," she said. My throat closed. "No." "Yes," she said. And then she was gone. Morning came gray and thin. My phone had messages from Mark's wife. "Have you heard from him?" My stomach turned. I drove to Lena's mother's house with my hand shaking on the wheel. She opened the door and looked me over like she could smell the rot on me. "You look like hell," she said. "I need to tell you something," I said. At her kitchen table with coffee I couldn't drink, I forced it out. "It was my fault," I whispered. "I bypassed the safety. I thought I was helping. I forgot to fix it." Her face went white. She stood so fast her chair scraped. "You forgot," she said. I nodded. She leaned over the table, eyes wet, voice shaking with something hard. "Sorry is what you say when you spill coffee," she said. "Not when you crush my daughter." I flinched. Then she looked past me down the hallway. I felt my skin prickle. Lena peeked around the corner, just her face, smiling. I didn't move. The coffee mug on the table slid an inch on its own. Lena's mother froze. The mug tipped. Coffee spilled like a dark stain. Her mother whispered, "Lena?" Lena stepped fully into view. Her mother made a sound that wasn't a scream. It was grief tearing open. She reached out. Her hand passed through Lena like smoke. Lena crouched by her and whispered something I couldn't hear. Her mother looked up at me, eyes burning. "Get out," she said. I backed toward the door with my palms up like I was trying to prove I had nothing in my hands. On the porch, I stood there for a second, listening. Through the door, I heard her mother sobbing, the kind of sobbing that doesn't stop and doesn't get prettier. I heard Lena's voice once, low, close. Then I couldn't tell if it was real or just my head trying to finish a sentence. I got in my car and drove away because staying felt like asking to be forgiven. I left. My phone rang again. A detective. 2 guards found dead overnight. My badge used. Mark missing. My mouth went dry. I drove without thinking until the trees opened onto the quarry. The water was still, then a black shape rose slowly near the surface. Plastic torn. Something pale inside. Mark. Lena appeared beside me at the edge, calm. "Messy," she said again. Police pulled up behind me. Detective Harlan stepped out. "Ethan Wallace?" "Yes," I croaked. "Where's Mark Denson?" I stared at the water. Lena's voice close. "Not yet." The detective narrowed her eyes. "Who are you talking to?" The air changed. That pressure again. That invisible weight. Lena moved behind the detective. The detective stiffened as if something cold had touched the back of her neck. She dropped to the gravel, eyes open, breath gone like a switch flipped. For a second I waited for her chest to move. I waited for a cough, a gasp, anything. Nothing. The silence after was bigger than the quarry. I stood there shaking, and I realized how easy it would be to do what I always did. Stand still, say nothing, let someone else explain the mess. Lena looked at me like she could see that thought. Truth, she said. My legs finally worked. I ran. I didn't go home for a confession. I went back to the plant because she wouldn't let me do it anywhere else. Inside, it was day shift. Noise. People. The smell of warm oil and metal mixed with coffee from the break room. Forklifts beeped. Someone laughed at something down the corridor, and the sound hit me like an insult. Police tape ringed the press bay. Workers stood back in little clusters, pretending not to stare. Some of them were staring anyway. An officer stopped me. I raised my hands. "My name is Ethan Wallace," I said. "It wasn't a malfunction." The plant manager appeared, face tight. I pointed at press 6. "Open the housing," I said. They did. The tie was still there, exactly where I'd put it. A small, stupid loop of plastic that had become a coffin. The room went quiet. I kept going because stopping was the old habit. "Mark Denson is dead," I said. "He's at the quarry." "And Detective Harlan," I added, voice breaking. "She was there. She didn't leave alive." Hands grabbed my arms. Cuffs clicked. As they walked me past the press, I saw Lena in the reflection. For a heartbeat, she looked whole. Then she flickered, crushed again, and vanished. At the station, the truth became paperwork, statements, evidence, photos. They put me in a holding cell. Concrete bench. Buzzing light. I sat with my head against the wall and tried not to breathe. The smell came anyway. Oil. Metal. Her. Lena stood in the darkest corner, crushed and staring. "You told them," she said. "I did," I whispered. "Did you tell them about me?" she asked. I couldn't answer. Her smile sharpened. "Still pretending," she said. The light flickered. The air thickened. That hiss again. Then a deep, dull slam. Close enough I felt it in my chest. The floor seemed cracked open like a mouth. Darkness underneath. Press bay darkness. Tight and low and wrong. Lena looked down at it like she recognized home. "I'm tired," she whispered. My throat burned. "I know," I said. She held out her hand. "Come," she said. I stepped back. "I don't deserve to stop," I whispered. Her eyes softened for the first time since she came back. "Neither did I," she said. The crack widened. The smell poured out. My lungs fought. Then clear, small, unmistakable, a click. Like a safety engaging. The crack stopped. The hiss eased. The pressure lifted. Lena's mouth opened. She looked startled. "It clicked," she whispered. The crack began to close. Slow, reluctant. It looked like a seam being pulled shut from the inside, like the dark didn't want to give up what it had. The smell faded in layers. First the blood note, then the pennies, then finally the oil, until all I had left was the buzzing light and my own breath. Lena flickered, crushed to whole and back again like she couldn't decide what she was. She looked at me like she was memorizing my face one last time. "I loved you," she said, and for once it sounded like her. "I love you," I said, and it sounded like the truth. Her smile trembled. "Don't waste it," she whispered. Then she was gone. The light steadied. Officers opened the cell. They hauled me up. As they dragged me down the hall, I looked back into the empty corner. Nothing. Later, alone in a longer-term cell, on nights when the building is quiet, I still listen. Sometimes I swear I smell oil. Sometimes I think I see a face in the dark. I don't call her name. I just wait for the click. If I hear it, I let myself breathe. If I don't, I keep my eyes open. Because that's what she did. And I don't get to sleep through it anymore.